Trucks. Welcome back
Do you know
to the
what
world of trucks. Yes.
You know what I learned about palm trees?
What did you learn about palm trees?
They're not native to the climate in Southern California.
I think I've heard that before.
And that is a reason that all of the palm trees in California look kind of sick and undernourished. Because they're meant to be rainy climate, swamp, tropical climate plants. And so all of the palm trees in Southern California are there essentially because they look cool, not because they belong there. And they're also all really scraggly and unfortunate.
They were trying to create some kind of new look for an American city. I wouldn't have been able to tell you that they looked scraggly and unhealthy if you hadn't told me just now. I don't know if these palm trees are representing it or not.
Those look like American palm trees, but yeah, no, like normal palm trees don't just look like a tiny puff of vegetation on a long pole.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, they're big and
bigger and leafier? Fatter trunks?
Well, I mean, the trunk fat is like a determination of how long they've been alive, but bigger and leafier, certainly.
Interesting.
More abundant. So that was what I learned about plants as symbols, which is often fun. You know, the cacti over there, those belong. And when I was in LA, I saw
what cacti? I don't see any cacti.
It was on the right. Turn the truck around. You can see it. Just
I know what to do. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, there you go. Hover out over your thing and head back up the road.
Which way?
I think you've gone in the wrong direction.
This way.
There you go. Yep. There, nope. Yeah, there we go.
Cactus.
Cacti.
Very
Probably
cool.
A single cactus clipped into the ground. Perfect. Well, that's not necessarily what we wanted to do with that mechanic, but we have the power. And now you're stuck on a very shallow incline.
Well, the cat's out of the bag now. I'll just bonk.
Welcome to the next level of trucks, everybody. We're using dev hacks, cheats.
That's how it is now.
We're pursuing this for art purposes is what we're doing.
That's not what this trucks is about. At least,
no.
At least I don't think so.
I don't think so. Like it might turn into that, but I think that ultimately, rather than looking at the beauty around us, we are looking at the ugliness inside us on this episode of Trucks. Because I want to talk about brain problems. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about mental health, and particularly the agency that exists around being a person with brain issues and behavior problems.
The agency that exists around it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been feeling this lately because, like, if everybody's got different degrees of capabilities, right? We're all a rainbow of different abilities to do things. You know?
Yes.
I ain't gonna sit down with a person who can't figure out the tip at a restaurant and say that they're math impaired, and then it's their responsibility to fix that. That's fine. That doesn't impact negatively on their lifestyle. If anything, it lets other diners be slightly smug about their ability to calculate the tip when they go out together. But there are other deficiencies that you have that kind of get in the way of, trying to live your life, and that's sort of where the arbitrary cutoff of being a mental health issue as opposed to an eccentricity, a quirk, or a personal, weakness goes, is when it starts to impact your goals negatively. Although, here's a tip. If you are concerned that you might be mentally unhealthy, but you don't have any goals, then you can't be, because there's nothing for them to prevent you from working with. So if you're not doing well, see if you can't cut down on your ambition from the other side, and you can drift out of the clinical definition of impairment that way.
Are you being tongue-in-cheek?
No? I really hope that you can tell that I'm being tongue-in-cheek.
Well, I mean, yes, but also you're getting into some Buddhist conceptions of truth here, where where desire is the driver of all unhappiness. And
maybe I'm onto something in that case. Yeah, like maybe it's a capitalistic way to look at the world, but if say your mental health issues are preventing you from eating, or washing, or leaving your house, or having meaningful relationships, maybe losing your attachment to food isn't the solution to that problem.
Right.
Maybe enlightenment isn't the way out of that issue.
At least not the most readily accessible way out.
No, I mean there are other extremely accessible ways out, but you want to walk the middle path, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And so, in terms of like where this is relevant for normal human beings, for people, for the majority of people are in the middle. Like always, it's like the majority of people don't have mental health problems that stop them from leaving the house or getting washed. And instead fall somewhere in the, well, I have some problems, range. Mm-hmm. And develop coping mechanisms, life habits around those issues that let them, get along at a pace that they consider normal. So you kind of, and whether it's following the Buddha's way or using laziness to your advantage or what, people tend to end up normalizing the way of life that they're capable of leading.
Sure.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah. Everybody lives in their head. Nothing you can really do about it.
Hey, everybody lives in their head. But it's more so like everybody lives the life that they can lead.
Yeah. And
you don't think about it as, well, if I was a different person or a healthier person, I could lead a different kind of life.
I mean, you totally do think about that. In my experience, one thinks about that. And I don't think I'm alone in thinking about that. People are often wishing that they had different brain chemistries, aren't they?
Yeah, but do they think that it's a problem to the extent that they need to get treatment for it?
They might think it's a problem to the extent that they need to buy like a Jordan Peterson book about it.
That's not a good idea, though.
That's not.
I suppose there's different models of describing behavior. Is like, you can say you're getting treatment on one hand, and on the other one you can say that you're helping yourself.
Right.
Helping yourself with some Jordan Peterson books. Going out and taking a yoga class. That counts as like mental health treatment.
Right.
I'm not saying that people
learning to meditate, whatever it is.
Right. But people like have I think pretty a lot of people that tend to have pretty realistic approaches to the cap on their self-improvement. Like in the immediate term.
Sure.
People get to understand their own capacities. I think there's an entire category of people whose problem is that they can never grasp their own capacities, and so are eternally biting off more than they can chew.
But that is kind of a condition that capitalist society wants us to have in a way. The 11 habits of highly successful people and all that.
Yeah, we marinate in a culture that tells us that we need to optimize our own productivity, essentially.
Right.
But that's the moral and the responsible thing to do, is to maximize your own productivity.
I've heard the perspective that cultural expectation is the driver of a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah, people do say, oh, capitalism is making us all sick and depressed, and there's a certain degree to which I buy that, but I think that, like...
It's also true that capitalism is the framework for which we define our own mental illnesses. So it's a difficult one to untangle.
Right, like the entire narrative around what constitutes being well or ill is, caught up in the terminology and the expectations for success that we understand through the economic system in which we live. Mm-hmm. I think that it's certainly more difficult to be okay with just surviving, because the culture wants you to strive,
right,
and to continuously improve yourself, with the understanding, kind of gently elided, that there is a finite amount of stuff that you can do,
right,
and that just being okay is probably a really good goal for a lot of people. But so you can say that like the impulse to seek treatment, whether it's through self-help, self-improvement, or like medication and therapy, is is a kind of pressure by society to make yourself into a better source of productivity to be bought and sold by our corporate masters. And that, sorry?
Some shades of truth there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there's a certain legitimacy in everything that I've said so far, including the jokes. But once you get to the point where just being like around and trying to live your best life feels bad all the time, then you start getting to the point where, well, maybe for my own sake, if not for the sake of my capitalist overlords, I should try to fix something.
Right.
And then there's the third way, which is like, if your way of being okay impacts the people around you negatively all the time, does it then become your responsibility to do something about it?
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. That's the word, everybody.
Yeah.
At that point, you should probably do something about it.
Is mental health even a real idea? Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is, in that the same way that bodily health is definitely a real idea. I.e., sometimes you can pick up the ball. Sometimes you can't.
Right.
Sometimes you can pick up the ball with your butt cheeks.
Right.
Sometimes you got to use your hands. Like a chump.
This metaphor is becoming very interesting.
I think it's just, we're diving into how like multivalent the concept of mental health can be.
It's super mental valent. It's all over the place.
It's so fucking all over the place. You got to get yourself a diagnosis.
You got to
before you get your insurance to pay for anything, and that's very important because mental health is not cheap. And even at the best of times is often not provided with your smorgasbord of societally mandated health pods.
It's cheap if you're very lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky enough to be either perfectly mentally neurotypical or lucky enough to have enough money that spending thousands and thousands of dollars on happy pills is cheap for you.
Yeah, I think that the rich are probably better at being happy. I mean, but then again, I'm saying that as somebody who isn't rich. Maybe rich people have problems too, Josh. Maybe
that's not what Disney movies teach me.
Oh my God! Don't get into what the culture is telling us about all of this. That's terrible.
But the culture is telling us about all of this is all we have to go on, really.
I mean, I think like when it gets down to the nitty gritty, what you have to go on is your own experiences. Like, if you keep putting your hand on the stove and it keeps being hot, at some point you have to be like, well, a hot stove is probably not a thing that I want to put my hand on.
Why can't I stop doing it?
Yes, perhaps I need to go and sit in a small room with a man who is like a cruel parody of myself.
I've never heard of a therapist or psychiatrist being described that way before.
It was really funny. I walked into this guy. This guy called my name at the office of the city-funded mental and addiction health clinic yesterday, and I got up to look at him, and it was like I was staring at my negative self-image. Like, he was like me, but even slumpier, dumpier, and less able to carry on normal eye contact.
Oh my. It
was something else.
You'd think eye contact would be a pretty important skill to have in his profession.
Yeah, maybe it is normal eye contact that he's doing.
Was he a psychologist, psychiatrist, counselor?
He's a therapist. He's a therapist. He's been doing it for a few years,
Yeah, you'd really think that would be an important...
Well, it's like I'm getting what I pay for, which is nothing because the state's paying for this.
Oh, man.
And but you gotta like I've had to explain to a couple of people what therapists are for lately.
Maybe you should do that for the sake of the audience.
Yeah, there's some like common misapprehensions about this.
Right.
A therapist is generally there to be an enormous ear in a room and listen to you talk about your shit. Because the most valuable thing that you'll get out of therapy, and also the hardest thing that you'll get out of therapy, is that you have to spend an hour in a room talking about yourself in a way that is theoretically comprehensible to another human being who will, if they're doing their job, keep you on task if you start talking crazy talk. And call you out if you start talking crazy talk or saying things that don't make sense. So, like, that... So on a really basic level, a therapist doesn't have to be particularly good at anything but listening, like constructively, to be useful for you.
Yes, although I would have thought that the secondary skill set of a therapist would be to be a soothing presence in some way.
I mean, if you need to be soothed, yeah, but that's not necessarily what you need to be happening, right?
If you're seeing a therapist, I would have assumed so.
I mean, you're seeing a therapist because there is something that is going on in your life or in your processes that you don't understand. Like you keep running into a problem, you keep interacting with it in the same way, and it's not working out. So you go to a therapist being like, I'm weirdly unhappy, and I don't know what to do about it. Because if you knew what to do about it, you would already have done something about it.
Sure.
And what you need to do about it is to figure out what's going on. And the figuring out what's going on has to come from inside your head. A therapist who tells you what's going on is not a good therapist as a general matter.
Right.
Although they can ask you guided questions and make suggestions. But if you're the sort of person who, in order to talk about yourself in that way, you have to feel perfectly safe, then choosing a therapist that is a soothing presence is good and necessary.
Yeah.
If you are a fighty human being like I am, and you need to be challenged into really doing the shoveling, then you need someone who's going to be willing to call you out.
Yes. My experience with a therapist was different from any of this. Basically, what seemed to happen when I was seeing her was that I would talk myself in circles, basically talking to myself as though I was my own therapist, and she seemed very entertained by my ability to do that forever.
Right.
Which,
you needed a more confrontational therapist, I think.
That's probably true. I kind of came out of that whole experience with the feeling that her main approach was just to give me an ego boost, which was kind of temporarily helpful.
Yeah.
But probably not in a long-term way.
If you come out of a therapist feeling good about yourself, you didn't do it right.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, I could see there being the person for whom that's the appropriate treatment.
I'll put it this way. If you come out of a therapist's office and you immediately feel good about yourself, that's something you have not done any work.
Maybe.
You have
if I could see there being a person whose whole problem is that they really ought to just be feeling better about themselves, and if the therapist can manage to do that in a short-term way, it's probably not an issue, right?
I mean, it depends on, like, I mean, obviously there's many different people who have very many different needs, but it's like you go in there, you're a person who has self-esteem problems. So what you're going to be doing when you're talking to your therapist, you're going to be talking yourself down over and over and over again, right? If a therapist just reassures you over and over again, and that, that may be like a thing that a friend would do,
Sure.
And it's a friend that you can pay to sit there and continue to do that over and over again, where most of your other friends have tired of this game many years ago. You can go out of there feeling maybe temporarily reassured, but what needs to happen there is the person says, okay, why are you doing that?
Right.
Let's talk about why you keep putting yourself down. And the attempt to dig down and get to the reason why they keep putting themselves down is going to be a difficult, tiring experience, because if it wasn't, you would already have done it.
Yes.
You know, so you go out, the feeling that one has coming out of a therapist, if it is working, is tired as shit.
Yeah.
Like, you've done some work, you know? And like, ideally, the end result is that once you have done the work, you understand that you're an okay person, you've learned to forgive yourself, and then you feel better about yourself. But it's not like the immediate result of that is going to be the thing that you want out of the process.
Right.
You know, there are other ways to temporarily feel better about yourself. Video games, for example.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that like, judging from what you told me about your experience with a therapist, it's like somebody who's more willing to intervene with your interior monologue, essentially, would have been the way to go. And I have the feeling with this guy, I'm probably gonna have to find somebody else, because I mean, like, I personally, like, I go in there with the best of intentions, you know. I'm obviously there because I want help.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately I'm like, I have to build a narrative to explain to this person what my life is.
Mm-hmm.
And if I build a narrative, I'm lying. So if this person does not challenge me on all of the points of this narrative, then they're not actually listening or engaging with me. And so I want a fighty son of a bitch, basically.
What if I fought with you?
I mean, I think that this brings up an important point.
I have a friend who tells me that I am an Aquarius, and I also happen to agree that I am an Aquarius. That's a matter of record. But,
Good.
But that one of my main inclinations as a therapist is to declare myself. No, I'm sorry. One of my main inclinations as an Aquarius is to declare myself everybody's therapist.
Yeah, I think that there are people who do that, who say, "Oh, you know, like I'm all my friends' therapists. I'm the mom friend or what have you."
Right.
And like, another really important part of therapy is that you pay them.
Yeah.
Either directly or through the state, because this is not work that anybody should volunteer for. It's not supposed to be pleasant.
Right.
You know, and if you have a relationship with this person outside of that process, it is going to take strain and it's going to become wonky.
Sure. Very true.
And like, which does not mean that you should not try to help your friends if they're in distress. But if you find yourself having the same conversation over and over again with your friends about the same problems, that's a therapist's job. That's not a friend's job, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that's what I'm like, sort of circling back to what I was saying at the beginning of the conversation. That's sort of what, you know, part of the responsibility of seeking out help is, if you find yourself in that kind of, you know, rut. Is like, at some point it's like, I just don't want to bore everybody around me to death, or feel like they have to be helping me move a mountain when that really isn't what they signed up for. When, you know, I met them at that party and we talked about
the riddle of my heart.
Exactly. Or, you know, Homestuck. But my God. Did I tell you that I saw like the most brutal talking to about Homestuck at a party the other week?
I think you mentioned that to the Discord, but
yeah,
you can't not tell the story now.
I've never seen something like that in real life before, and it was in the year of our Lord 2018, and it was, and I was at this party, and Malo was at this party, and there was a fun, and there was like this nice, interested, like universally interested guy who was asking Malo wrestling questions. Mm-hmm. And Malo was telling this guy about wrestling because Malo had come to see some wrestling. And, you know, the conversation got onto Homestuck and then got off. But somebody else at the party heard Homestuck, walked over, took this innocent man like into his conversational vacuum, and told him about Homestuck for a solid 45 minutes. Like, in front of man and God.
What I want to know is, did the guy glass over at any point?
He was suffering.
He was?
Like, I checked in with him about it afterwards.
Despite,
and he was like,
despite being a universally interested fellow. What did he say?
He was like, I have a limited amount of time on this earth, is what he said.
Woo! Nice. It's a good answer to Homestuck in general.
Yeah. I respect that response. But anyway, don't do that, everybody. Don't talk to a man about Homestuck for a period of time exceeding 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Regardless, that was a bit of a tangent. You should, if you need to talk to somebody about Homestuck for 45 minutes, make sure you pay them. Make sure it's a therapist.
Look at this road.
Oh my god, we've been freed from our contextual shackles.
It's only temporary. I've left the truck on cruise control. Oh, well, hopefully I've left the truck on cruise control. You can see that my mirror up there is frozen, but I don't really think that's true. Let's go check in on myself.
See how you're doing up there. Oh, yeah.
I think I'm holding up traffic.
So, speaking of mental health, I believe this is what is called dissociating.
Yeah. Or maybe we're just having an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Oh, I didn't successfully run that guy off the road. Okay. You were saying, Isaac.
I was saying that
we've accidentally had a short Trex, but I think maybe we can artificially lengthen it.
I mean, certainly if we keep doing this, we're going to artificially lengthen it. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I had a real life road fight.
Oh yeah?
Today. Yeah. I merged into somebody's lane. He beeped angrily at me. I immediately slowed way down and made him miss the light.
Ooh.
Then as I went to pass him a block later, he faked swerving directly into me. Mm-hmm.
Whoa. He faked that. That's a rude move.
Yeah. He just he cut his wheels and went a little bit over the line.
Yikes.
Right as I was passing him. And so I screeched to a halt. And, we made eye contact. And I looked at him and I was like,
maybe you should see a therapist.
Well, in my head, I was like, this situation is almost certainly equally my fault, although this man is a lunatic, comparatively. But, as I flipped him off and told him to go fuck himself, I thought, the lesson here is really that I should have been the bigger man.
I suppose that's the lesson. Yeah, I guess that's the lesson.
I've been trying to reevaluate how I handle conflict lately because the internet is I'm losing my ability to handle the fact that everybody on the internet is being driven slowly insane by the culture that they're in. Mm-hmm. And
so that is our conclusion. People are being driven slowly insane by the culture.
I think that people have been getting more sour and unpleasant lately, and that's more so even than they were before, which was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the level of splitting that I'm seeing along ideological lines is both major and occasionally completely baffling to me. And maybe that's just because I'm getting older and not understanding where these battle lines are drawn now. But I don't think so. I think that everybody's just on edge, and I think it's because it's fucking hot outside.
That's probably not the only reason.
Yeah, also the culture is driving everybody insane.
Well,
and it's hot outside. Oh my god.
I guess the charitable read is that when the culture is so clearly broken, it becomes everybody's responsibility to try to imagine ways to unbreak it.
Yeah, you become responsible for the local culture, and so you become super emphatic about policing it.
Right. God damn it.
But,
I got just a little slab of concrete. My god powers over this game are not yet strong enough to just delete that thing on the fly. Okay, but luckily my wheels can just pass clearly through it. So that's helpful.
I think that but as with the road incident, the thing that I'm left with is, at the end of the day, you know, if I was more of a nice guy who had control over his temper and didn't fight people as much as I do, then the fact that people are insane gatekeeping shitheads wouldn't really factor into my life, because I wouldn't give them the opportunity to gatekeep at me.
What kind of gatekeeping are we talking about here?
I guess gatekeeping is the wrong word. I mean, if I never made any controversial statements, we could all be friends.
Oh, well,
I
that's
guess
true.
That's what I meant.
Dude, uncontroversial people have so many friends.
I know, it's ridiculous. But do I want all those friends?
But you know what? Controversial people also have a lot of friends sometimes. When
Yeah,
they're like really
most-
good at towing a party line.
But like really bad ones. Like,
Sometimes.
I want friends who...
This is freaking me out more than it should, this particular parking job.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing that. It's like, I want friends who are... I want
You
friends who want to play all the time. That's what
I
I
want to play all the time.
Yeah, I want
Like,
friends who
play with...
ideas.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you don't
I
want...
see what you-
How do you feel about friends with convictions?
I mean, friends without convictions are not a good idea either, are they?
Right. But
I
when
think
you...
I think it's a good idea to be able to hold your convictions in perspective.
But also play with them. I see.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't play with your convictions, then what good are they if you don't put them to the test every once in a while?
That's true enough.
Mm.
We've drifted off topic, haven't we?
Well, I mean, almost. Like, I think that
Wow.
my current
this-
inability to navigate these things and my current feeling of being mentally unstable are linked, certainly.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably mostly just how hot it is out. And the weather.
The brain...
Both how hot it is and the weather. And the brain.
The brain... I'm a mental health doctor, and my diagnosis is that the brain was only supposed to operate under certain weather conditions.
Yeah, you need 8 hours of sleep a
And
night.
parked.
Oh. But does it count? That's the question.
It does count. It counted... No, it didn't. I thought it counted immediately, but it's so close to... There we go. I literally... No, there we go. I only had to move that much.
This is like...
See, does
This
that
is
tell
like,
us anything?
This is like a bold, revolutionary new era of trucks that we just sort of accidentally ushered in here. The era of the free cam. You
We
know?
were just talking about how you have to work on yourself with like great difficulty and at length, and here I am just kind of cutting the Gordian knot of parking a truck.
Mm.
I don't deserve it, Isaac. It's not good enough. I have to see
Yeah,
what happens if I deposit my truck into the void. I've never done this before. Are you ready?
Yeah, yeah, I'm ready.
Holy shit. Oh, that was... Oh, goodbye.
You know,
It's still beeping.
it's
Goodbye.
entirely possible that what we're witnessing here is the last episode of Trucks.
Oh. Oh, man. It's the color of sky now.
I know, like, but how?
Oh,
how
I hit something.
can you... You hit
Oh, wait,
something in the
it's
void.
gone. It's gone, and I'm still taking damage. No! Ah! It's scary! Take me back to land! Help! I don't want to be down here anymore. I can't see land anymore. I'm holding the wrong button. I need to go up. I'm
Which
going
way is
up.
up?
You can't
Which
tell,
way
but
is
I'm going
up,
up.
Josh?
Oh God! Look at the mirror in the corner. It's still showing a guy. My truck is almost 100% disintegrated. There's a
There
mountain.
it is. There's land. There's land. You can save this. You can save this. You can save this. Do it. Do it.
Where's the destination?
Doesn't matter. Do it. Oh, it's too late. You're 100% damaged.
Oh, that's what you meant by do it. I can't see the map because it's warning me about the damage. This is the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. There it is. It looks a lot like it did last time I saw it. Can you drop your truck into the Grand Canyon?
Boink.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Mental health. This feels pertinent somehow in a way I can't
Yeah.
place.
You know, we gotta. I think that that's what the work. You know, here I'm gonna do this, and it might be bullshit, but I'm gonna do this. Like,
Okay.
I think that's the main work of therapy, is that you end up in a narrative that you can't control. You end up in a framework that you can't control. You keep doing the same things wrong, which is why you go to therapy in the first place. And like, the ideal thing that you want out of therapy is realizing, oh, I could just teleport myself out of the truck at any given time. You know,
Yeah.
I've been exactly there at that observation tower.
I think I have too.
Yeah, that is a real thing that exists. It was considerably higher res. But the thing about that process is that it's scary and dangerous too, right? And I think that's why a lot of people don't do it, is realizing that you have that freedom, that you could go and put your truck where it belonged at any given time. Like, what does that say about your decisions up until this point? What does it say about your drive to go on in the future?
Well,
You know, what is the rationale at this point? It's like, once you've seen your truck fall through the world and disappear into the void, like, how can you justify doing trucks anymore?
well, I think what you realize is that there is no right or wrong place for the truck to be. And that
This is the right place for the truck to be because you framed it that way.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's too idealistic a notion, but wouldn't it be nice to believe that anything your brain is doing is what is at least, if not what it should be doing, then a fine thing for it to be doing?
I mean, yeah, except if it's telling you to kill yourself a lot.
Well, yes, I suppose that is where it lets down, but within certain constraints.
Yeah, I mean, like, from in a number of, you know, potential situations.
Reckless.
You let your truck fall through the earth. It's very reckless indeed. But sometimes we have to be reckless in order to grow as people, Josh.
I think that was the first time I've ever been charged more than I earned from a job.
But think of all of the personal growth. Well, this has been in trucks, hasn't it?
It has been. Can I enter free chem in this zone? No, sadly not.
No, I don't think so.
It's been a Trex. I kind of liked
Trucks.
it. I kind of
Yeah,
liked it. I hope you liked it.
I think this was a good trucks, an important trucks.
An important Trex?
An
Well,
important trucks.
we'll have to let history decide that one.
Yep.
I guess it was the final Trex, so it's an important Trex in that way.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, see you next time.
Bye-bye. I think that was an excellent trucks, actually.